Hello, my name's Hilary Regan and I'm the CEO of ATF Press, and we're here with Norm Harble, who has been one of the people who's been associated with these two volumes, A Bloke Called Jesus and An Outback Christmas. And these were done a number of years ago with Rigby's, which doesn't exist anymore, a publisher here in Adelaide, and he did this together with Pro Hart, an artist in Broken Hill, who was deceased in 1986, and Norm will now speak about both of these books.
I should tell you first a bit about Pro Hart, as Pro Hart was one of the great Australian painters, and you've probably seen some of his paintings, but he was a very brilliant man, and very generous, but very Aussie. He really was from the Outback. He lived in the Outback at Broken Hill, and was part of the Outback community. So when he paints, his paintings reflect the world of the Outback, the world with the imagery in the tree. For example, you look at his trees, they don't look anything like the trees that the British painted when they first came and tried to copy. So he is a man, he's also, he's a very generous man. I'll just give you an example of just how generous he is, apart from giving me several paintings. We met up with him about 40 years ago in the Adelaide Art Gallery, and we sat down and I had my daughter, who was about 6 years old, and after church, and we sat down, had a cup of coffee, and he said to my daughter, "Look, here's a piece of paper, I'll paint 2 ants for you." He often did ants on various things all over the place. You find his ants. He planted these 2 ants, he handed it to my daughter, who's a little 6-year-old, and she says, "I can do better than that." And he said, "Oh, well, I'll send you a couple of paintings." And so 2 paintings he sent her, simply because
she said she could do better. But how did you first meet him?
Well, it all happened way back when for some reason, Rigby's had discovered, they said, "Well, there's some paintings by Pro Hart. We might start a thing with Pro Hart." And he connected with them, and then they somehow, out of nowhere, they said, "How about inviting Harble to do a couple of poems?" And I said, "Sugar doodle. Me? Oh, I'd have to be very Aussie to do that." Because then I had just to rethink. You see, way back when in 1974, when I came back to Australia, I asked the question, what was God doing in Australia before the Europeans came? But then I listened to Pro Hart, and he was saying, "You've got to go further. What was Jesus doing in Australia before the Europeans came?" Right. And the whole story is a portrayal of Jesus as a real Aussie. And he is a Dinkum Aussie, and he portrayed that in... So the first volume, Outback Christmas, really grew out of that initial discussion with Rigby's, and we sat down and talked together and created the whole thing. See?
And how long did it take?
Oh, the first one, I don't know, about 12 months, but not too long. But a lot of the paintings he already had started, he had done, you see. It just, every once in a while, I'd say, we might modify that one. I don't like horses with wheels on. There's various little satirical elements he has in some of his paintings, And he's very full of humor, and so so these stories are, and I really went back to my childhood and my youth in the farm. I came from the bush, so to some extent, this reflects my heritage. Yep. But I was able to identify with his imagery and create poems that are there.
And did he want to see them and agree?
We talked them through.
Did you? Okay.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It all starts, you see, with the very first one, and I'll just do a couple of these just to illustrate the point. The Coming Bushman, and that's that picture. And the Coming Bushman, and I don't need my glasses. I was going to do it by. Ours is a story of Christmas Outback, when Jesus, the Bushman, was born. The story of Mary and Joseph and Jesus, good folk like us from the bush. So the whole orientation is from the bush, and the stories go on, and you have Zechariah and a few other things, and Mary's, but then you have old Joseph the carpenter. Does that show up? Okay. and I often do this one when we perform this. This has been performed at quite a number of places at Christmas, right? I was just an ordinary bloke before the baby came, and I still am. I never look down on any man, though. They have laughed at me for what have happened. Anyway, she gives birth. She gets pregnant. He's surprised. He said, "I never had anything to do with it." Oh, gee, God only knows how she came by the child. I swear I never touched her.
So that's how you deal with the virgin birth, is
yeah. It's all in his language, you see, and his style. But then the baby came, and the baby was beautiful. So we have all these stories in Mary's fear, what she felt, and so forth. But then one of the ones that really gets to me is the ride to Bethlehem. They ride, and all the dingoes and all the animals look and watch as they go along. Then comes, if I can turn the right page, the Bethlehem pub. There it is. Mary and Joseph and Jesus at the Bethlehem pub. Now it's really one of my favourite poems. The country pub is not a proper place for women. The last place on earth to try and have a kid. So when Mary and her tired old man arrived that night, I rustled up a bed of straw out in the shed. I run the country pub in Bethlehem, a home away from home for stockmen interstate. When the picnic races stir the dust out here, a man will ride 100 miles to meet his mate. The pub in Bethlehem is rough as horned-head toads. And what I've seen would turn a sheer of green and white, like the time young Bill fought Blue, the old man kangaroo, till beer and blood and fur flowed down the street. Well, at first I wondered if Mary's child belonged out here. He may as well be born among the mulga bush outback. Yet Mary seemed a sister to all who found her in the shed. And Jesus was a brother to drinkers, drovers, blacks. That's the Bethlehem pub. Anyway, all of these stories go through, and after there's quite a number of others, but Herod's apology and Anna's song.
And how long did it take you to think through the different?
Well, this is basically based on the story of in Luke.
Oh, right. Okay.
This is the
Lucan.
The Lucan version.
Narrative. Yep.
And then we have the three gamblers. The three wise gamblers.
The three wise men. Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we were fools, wise old fools, sailing out at night until the treacherous wilderness, like the daily explorers. Yes. Anyway, they saw the star and they followed the star, and then they came and they brought 3 gifts, right? Yeah, right. First, Laura says, well, yeah, we have left, and they smelt, like you could smell the ale in their teeth. Then the gifts of the gamblers, which comes next. The first gift was, well, what do you give to a kid from God? What do you give? What do you give? There they are rushing. Look at the star. And the emus and everything there. Yeah. Somewhere I've got this one. Anyway, 3 gamblers come, and they one gives an old nugget from his grandfather, another one gives a keg of beer, old port, and another one says, and there is the hide of a wallaby. I timed myself last winter. Smells a bit like tanning bark, but it'll keep all the insects away. And so all these little elements of humour in the midst of it as well, which, we fitted together.
Yeah.
And the very last one became quite a popular song, actually, because it was reflected the whole thing, and the coming home. And it's just, the song, Robin Mann wrote the music to all of these songs, Will you be coming home this Christmas? Will you be done? Will you be bringing a born among us, a child among us, to make our family one? Will you be driving through the desert across the wastes where dingoes roam? Will you be returning as a drover brother to heal our broken home? Will you be coming from the outback, a traveller sent from God above, to stir the goodness deep among us with silent human love? And that's coming back from the Egypt when they, you remember,
Flight into Egypt. Yep.
the flight into Egypt. Anyway, that. But each one of them has a very vivid picture.
Yeah.
The red.
So was that was that the first book, or was the Bloke Called Jesus?
No, this is Outback Christmas.
But that was the first. Of
Oh yes, that was the first.
Yeah.
And that was based on the Gospel of Luke.
Luke. Yep. Mm-hmm.
But the Bloke Called Jesus is based on the Gospel of John.
Okay.
You know, and Bloke Called Jesus. And the very first image that's in here, this one, is really a good picture. I like that picture. It's like that one there, you see. That was picked up. And it begins, who is this bloke they call Jesus, with his red prickle beard and his dog? A prophet God sent from the outback? Or a flaming country mug? Anyway, the whole story goes through, and he does some miracles. So good Samaria. His mates is right. And one of the other ones that I really like is the tin kettling at Cana. Oh, the tin kettling at Cana. Oh, the dew at the old shearing shed, where the story of Jesus caught fire, and the glory of the bushman spread. There was a loud banging of tin cans when the bride and the groom first came, with the sheep all bleating their welcome, and the dogs all howling with pain. And oh, the shame of the bride's parents when they toasted the groom with a cheer. Was not that the jokes had been dirty, a shame of a shed without beer. So then, oh, the shouts, and then the old wild yahoo when Jesus grabbed the best man out at the door and told him to fill every barrel with the water from dirty old bore. Yeah, or the shouts and the cheers from the stockman when the blokes in the kegs reappeared as jug after jug kept on flowing with glorious golden brown beer. Turning, instead of turning water into wine, we turned bore water into beer. So all these other stories, the shearing shed, the picnic at the races, which is, the feeding of the 5,000. Look at that. The racetrack, people around it, and the stoning of the prostitute. Oh, throw stones, white stone, if you alone have never seen this day. That's the white one, the stones. You want to have that picture too? Anyway, it's all very, very good. But the one that I really think is quite significant is the Council of Caiaphas, right? When the town council met that night to contain the crisis called Jesus, it was meet, right, and proper that I, as the priest, would offer the counsel of God. For the man from the mulga was scattering outrageous claims to be God in the flesh, conceived in the dreaming, a son of the Holy One. So he says it's easy enough to kill a young man when they take off with God to war. But what do we say it is for? So I counseled the council that one man should die for the peace of his people and prevent the bloodshed of all. At least, that's what we said it was for. And so you have King of the Bush entering Jerusalem, politics of Pilate, and then the one that's really quite powerful is, and this image you should get a good shot of, is the hot on the hill when Jesus is crucified, okay? the slow setting sun rose the wings of a throne on the hill, and the verdict was passed as the bushman was killed by the heat. She's a hot one today. She's a scorcher, all right. She's hot on the crown of the hill. It's quite a painting, isn't it?
Cool.
And the crown of thorns.
Yeah. So what happened to these paintings after? Did they?
Well, that's a really important question. He said before he died that they were in a pile in the back, and if you go back, when you visit his place, he has a big shed at the back which is full of paintings, hundreds of paintings, some of his and some of everybody else's. Yeah. And among those, he said he put them all away, but when he died, his son couldn't find them.
So whether they be taken by other people or
what happened to them, we don't know. So what happened when he died and the place was cleaned up, God only knows. But if you went to his place, he had this one wall, 10 times as long as this, but there wasn't an inch of wall. It was painting against painting against painting, hundreds of them. He didn't just have his own paintings, he collected paintings from all over the place. He found old things he did in somebody's attic. Oh yes, you look closely and said, that's an original. That's a Rembrandt. He has all these fascinating paintings. It was crazy. Anyway, this has been performed in several places. Here's an example of a bloke called Jesus, which was done on Good Friday in 2018.
Okay.
See, it can be performed, and Robin Mann has the songs that go with it. You see, so quite a lot of these poems are actually in
So it hasn't been performed for a while.
Not for a while, no.
Any plans for it?
Well, I'd like to see it, but I can't do everything.
No.
I'm now bloody 90.
Well, both of these books are available off ATF Press website or through our distribution in the UK or the US.
Yeah.
But they are available and they will soon be promoted through various means, and they'll be on Amazon, Book Depository, etc.
It might be worth contacting Robin Mann to see whether or not he had a CD of this. That's still available.
Okay. Our distributor in the US is ISD, Ian Stevens Distribution, and our distributor in the UK is Gazelle.
Oh yeah.
So thank you, Norm, for